recording is started now. So, and yeah, I had some other topics here, is like just say, okay, disable webcam. That's not necessary, but yeah, why do we do the recording? Yeah, for capturing valuable insights, discussions, and also make it available in the meetup, in our networks, etc., and especially for you to just maybe recap this meeting and follow up if you couldn't join or you haven't had the time to stay throughout the whole session. And with that point, I will just introduce my next speakers. And as you can see them already, it's Julian and Kiru. They will present about integrate code snippets into RPA. And with that said, I will just stop my screen share and hand over to the awesome presentation here.
Okay, then thank you, Kai. Let me share my screen and then I can go already. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. And just a short note to everyone who had joined after I started. If you have questions, just put them in the chat. The two awesome speakers will try to address some of them maybe during the meeting, during the presentation, and everything else will be covered in the Q&A session afterwards. So feel free to just post anything in the chat.
Okay. Then shall we start?
Yeah.
Maybe some.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, some small sentences about myself. My name is Julian Groß. I live in the center of Germany in Darmstadt, and I'm working for LPDG for 3.5 years now, focusing on RPA as a developer and as an architect, and also started my journey with MuleSoft Anypoint now with a certification as an MCD1 and also starting as an architect there. But for today, I'm here with my awesome colleague Kiru. So maybe also some words about you.
Yes, thanks, Julian. So my name is Kiru. I am also working with Julian in LPDG. It's been now around 3.5 years. My focus is also process automation, mostly with MuleSoft RPA, also as an architect and a senior RPA consultant. And I started my professional journey with test automation and then moving on to full stack development and then finally now to RPA. I'm also a MuleSoft mentor and also certified hyper automation specialist, which is focusing then on all automation tools across MuleSoft and Salesforce. So that's about me and really looking forward to having interesting discussions with you all. So, Julian, back to you.
Okay, then let's jump into our interesting session. Today we are focusing on integrating scripts into MuleSoft RPA. And yeah, we also want to talk about it, but we also brought some demo cases, of course. And yeah, this techie session, of course, will be a bit techie, so feel free to ask questions anytime. I try to read them, catch them, and maybe we can answer them from scratch. And also, if it gets too techie or too specific, please let us know also. Then, first slide, Q. Of course,
already in the first slide.
I'm sorry. Yeah, of course.
No, sorry, go on.
Before starting automation, it's always smart to see what you have already there. And since most RPA projects are already introduced on processes that already exist within the company, normal people are working with these processes. So it's always an interesting part of seeing how the people are doing it. And maybe some small software snippets are already in place that help at one and another point to fulfill the puzzle. So of course, if you can find...
Just a short disruption, Kira, we can only see your browser window.
Okay, sorry, let me try again. Oh, that is strange. Stop sharing, share again, entire screen. Maybe this would help. Share. What about now, Kai? Is it better?
Now we can see PowerPoint, yes.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to switch to the presenter view and then, yeah, Julian. So go
Awesome.
on.
Now we can actually follow you.
Okay, perfect. I was confused for a bit because, but all good. Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, so if you can identify some of those snippets, of course, in the company, it's of course helpful to integrate them in the robot or in the MuleSoft RPA, because if you have those snippets that has been used before, of course, you can save a lot of time because you don't have to implement them in the robot environment on the one hand, and of course, on the other hand, you don't have to test them into that extensive range because they have already been working. And maybe as a small hint, as a techie, if you have a real complex problem that you can't think of a good solution within the robot and you're keen in some kind of programming language, this might be also an option for you. So next slide. So the why and where do we use it, of course. On the one hand, we have this pre-built code snippets that might exist. We simply want to include them. But of course, it's always helpful, like having a pre-built code snippets that we can include in the robot all the time when we need it, like reuse code. For example, if you have to transform a date format for specific different kinds of softwares, or what we have experienced more than once in the last year is if you have old workflows from Service Trace, that's the RPA software that is also compatible with MuleSoft RPA. Of course, you can migrate existing workflows into MuleSoft RPA, and then it's always helpful to use the scripting that is used there in the MuleSoft RPA. So you can really save a lot of time, especially when using Service Trace RPA, but also old application performance monitoring customers can be helped here a lot, because we can really save a lot of time in implementing stuff. And of course, as I said, the techie part, if there is something that is not yet implemented in MuleSoft RPA, or something you really have no idea how to solve it differently, or it's simply time critical to deliver and you have a solution already somehow in your mind, you can of course always script it in a different programming language and integrate it into MuleSoft RPA. Next, please. So before going deeper, there are some small answers to be given about RPA. The one thing is a software robot is a bit different from an API in general, because the software robot, of course, wants to mock a human user in some cases. And of course, if you have a robot user, it has to have then the same permissions as a human user. And this is something that is forgotten a lot sometimes. So if you want to automate something with a robot, double check, triple check if every permission is granted as the same as the human user. And there we come to this environment terminology. We have in the MuleSoft RPA something that's called a base path. And this is the root directory for all the robot activities. And what is really important here is when you build the robot in your studio, the environment path is different from the path when you deploy the robot. So you really should take care of a good structure of the environment path here, so you don't hard code it for somehow, because that will definitely not work after deploying, especially when you put it on another machine, for example. Another good part about this base path is that it will be deleted after every run. So if you store something temporarily, it is really temporary, and you don't have to care about file handling or something else. The other important folder is the third-party folder. This is a folder where you can store, as the name says, some third-party software, and it will be automatically uploaded and packaged and uploaded to the robot wherever you deploy the process. So if you have some external software you want to deliver with your RPA, just park it in the third-party folder, and of course every includes you also want to use, and it will be automatically be packaged and transport and uploaded to the destination where it should go. Any questions so far? Because this is normally a kind of complex point. Okay, the next one, Kiro.
Yes. Okay. So now that we have gotten over the terminology that we must use in the integration, we actually now see how to actually integrate a script into an RPA workflow. So there are some points that we should pre-think before we start integrating a script, one of which is being the structure of the script. So this is, I think, common for any programming language, any script that we would be writing independent of RPA, is to think about what are the input parameters and what are the output parameters, and the number of input and output parameters, and also the data types of them. So this is the first thing that we should have in mind. And then we should also take a decision on which runtime we are going to use in order to execute the script. As Julian already explained, it is possible with MuleSoft RPA to have any runtime possible to execute the script, but by default, MuleSoft RPA comes with AutoIT, because it is AutoIT that is being used in the background of MuleSoft RPA, so you don't have to install AutoIT runtime per se in any of the bot VMs or in your development environment, for example. But if you're using any other runtime other than AutoIT, like for example Python or C++ or whatever, then you should be responsible then for installing it in your development environment as well as in the production environment where the bot is going to run. And then the final point to remember is the output parameters. What is the format that we want to give out the output parameters as? So there are 3 options depending on a few conditions. So one is we can write the output parameters as plain text, and then from inside the robot access this plain text file and then read the output parameters written in there. This is one option. But let's say if we have a script that is giving out 100 output parameters, then it could be a bit cumbersome to read the text file and then identify the right output parameter to read. So in this case, it would be useful to use a more structured file like an JSON file or a CSV or Excel, for example. This would give a lot of ease when we, inside the robot, try to read a particular output parameter from the script. And the third option is when we use legacy applications, which do not give out any sort of file, but they just display the output in some sort of message box or a dialog box for that matter. So we can also, there is a possibility also inside MuleSoft RPA to read the output from these legacy UI components. Yep. And then moving on. Now we actually see with a concrete example on what it is that we should build both inside the workflow and inside the script in order to perform this integration. So in this slide on the left hand side, you see is the RPA builder screenshot, and on the right hand side we see an actual script that this builder workflow is then calling. So I start from the left-hand side first. So there are 3 important steps that we should do while integrating a script. First one is to construct a string which is combining all the arguments that we are going to pass to our executing runtime. So in this example, we use AutoIT as the runtime because, as I mentioned, it comes out of the box with MuleSoft RPA. So in the combined strings, I should combine together all the arguments that I have to pass to this AutoIT runtime. In this case, I have to pass the script that I want the runtime to execute and the parameters that the script takes. So this is combined here. And then in the second step is the run program, which is actually calling the AutoIT runtime and passing to it the parameters that we constructed in the line above. And then finally, once the script has finished executing, we read the output of the script from a text file. Yeah. this is the 3 action steps that we must do inside a workflow in order to call a script and read the output. Now, coming to the script part on the right-hand side, this is very specific to any programming language that we decide to use, but this is a general description or general structure on how the script should look like. So on top, if we have any dependencies, then we include them also, and we make sure that it is also present, this dependency is also present inside the third-party folder, so that, like Julian explained, it is also packaged and uploaded along with the process code. So that is the first part. In this case, in this example that we see here, it uses a date function, which needs in AutoIT a dependency called date.au3, which is then included in the first line. And then coming to the second part is we have to read the command line arguments that are being passed from the RPA workflow inside the script. This syntax is also very specific to the programming language you choose. But for AutoIT, this is how we do it with this dollar command line of the array index that we have to read from. And then finally, in the last line you see is the text file. So once we perform all the business logic, so the middle part is a business logic, which I will not go too much into detail because it is, of course, very specific to the problem and the programming language that you choose. So coming to the last line, after all the business logic is executed, we write finally the result into a text file called, in this case, recall check.txt. And we, from the bot, read the written output from the text file and then process it however we want to further. Now, here at this point, I would also like to stress the relevance of the base path that Julian explained in the previous slide. So, like he explained, the base path is the root working directory of the robot. So it creates here all the runtime artifacts, and it deletes all these artifacts once it has finished executing. So we create the output text file that we have to read from inside the base path to ensure that this file is deleted once the script execution has finished or once the workflow execution has finished, so that we don't have to take care of cleaning up the file. And we can also be sure that this file is then created as a result of the execution of the script. Yep. With that, I would like to directly go to the demo, but this is, I think, a good place to pause for questions in case you have any before going to the demo.
None in the chat so far.
Okay.
So as promised, we have demos, 3 in count. And I guess we can start with the first one. And the first one, as Kiro already explained in the last slide, we are having a text as an output file, and we have a robot that consumes an Excel file, which reads customer data, and specific customer data, including dates. And maybe we can show this in the Excel directly. And with here the registration date and, of course, normal customer data. And our script will check if this registration date is within a 14-day period. For that one, we use the script with a function. But I guess you want to explain that, Kiro, right?
Yes. So just to add on to what Julian already said, the simple use case here is we have here the registration date. And in Germany, here we have, for any contract, we have like a 14-day period where the customer is entitled to cancel the contract without giving any reason, right? So the use case here is that this script that we would integrate into the bot would then check if the registration date is already beyond the 14-day period when compared to today. So this is the use case for now. And this is the Excel that the bot is going to use. And the script is going to do this date operation. And it is going to write back into this column E, a yes or a no, depending on whether the recall period has passed or not. So this would be the use case. And let me go back to the builder and show you the bot, how it is built before executing it. So this one is very simple. It just has one activity, which is going to perform this action. We have here an Excel session, which is going to read the Excel that I just showed. And inside that is a loop, which is for now iterating for 2000 iterations. But whether we are in the end of the Excel or not is then checked inside the loop, inside the select case. But before, we read now the registration date, which is in column A of the Excel. And whether, depending on whether the registration date is having content or not, the bot decides to break the loop or to proceed then to call the script. So let us say that the registration date has a value, then it goes inside to the select case. So this is what we saw in the presentation earlier. The first step here is to construct our command line arguments. So in this case, it's always the first parameter is always going to be the script that we want AutoIT to execute. And the second parameter should always be the base path, because this is where the output text file would be created. And then finally, these are the parameters that the script expects. So in this case, I just need to pass the registration date to the script for it to perform then this calculation of the 14-day interval. That's basically it. And then the next step is the run program, where we actually call AutoIT, pass to it the command line arguments we constructed in the step above. And the working directory here would always be the third-party folder, because this is where our script is located. You can access the third-party folder by right-clicking on the workflow, clicking on Open Workflow Location, and in here is the third-party folder, and in here is my script. Maybe I open it in Notepad++ to make it look pretty. Yeah. Okay. So this is the same script that we saw also in the slide above. So it includes also the dependency to the date library of AutoIT. And then here it reads the three parameters that we passed from the workflow. The first one being the base path, the second one being the registration date. And then finally, we have one output parameter, which is just a string having the value yes or no, depending on the calculation that the script is performing with the registration date. So I won't go into the business logic. This is just a simple date diff function, which is just calculating whether the interval between today and the registration date is more than 14 days or not. And once the logic is done, it finally writes into a text file, which is located inside the base path called recallCheck.txt. And inside this, it is writing our output parameter. Okay, then I guess we can just go ahead and execute this.
Let's start it.
Started already.
How many entries does this file have, Kiro?
It has around 70 rows, I think. So, yeah. And we are passing each row line by line in the Excel. Of course, this is not the smartest thing to do, but we have just done this because this is just an example that we want to showcase. But if we are running it in a productive environment, it would be smarter than to read the full Excel from inside the script itself instead of passing each row from the bot. But even then, you saw that it didn't take so long, maybe
around 30 seconds.
Give or take, yeah. But now let's go to the third-party folder again and look at our Excel. And we can see already that this column is now filled from the script. So what it has done is it has read from the text file. So this is the text file that we are outputting from the script. And there is a write to Excel action step, which is actually then taking the result from the text file and then putting it back inside the Excel.
Kiro, we have a question from the audience about the delete file, I guess. In the
yeah.
that case.
So this is also very specific. This is also very specific to this use case, because I have here inside the loop passing and creating the text file again and again. What happens is sometimes the robot is very fast that it reads the output from the previous execution or the previous iteration of the loop, right? So that is why we have here a delete file. But if we do not have the loop here, this would usually not be needed. I hope that answers your question. I cannot read the chat, but Julian, just let me know if there is any further questions on this perspective.
Not yet.
Okay, perfect. Then I guess we can just go to the second demo then.
Yeah, the second use case, this time we use as an output our JSON format. And yeah, we're dealing with customer data again. And in this case, we are searching two attributes in an Excel file. And it's a customer class and a customer plan. Maybe we can also, while it's loading, also take a look at the Excel. And of course, if we find both values that we requested from this Excel, we return the corresponding columns C, D, and E in a JSON file. And in this case, I guess we are actually doing exactly what we suggested in the case before on performance issues, like reading the whole Excel again and not iterating it step by step. And of course, if we can't find the corresponding pair, we want to send out an email. But I guess Q will explain that also in detail.
Yeah. So here in this robot, we have 3 activity parameters. One is, of course, this path to the Excel. And then we pass to the robot a class and a plan, which is corresponding in this Excel to columns A and B. And the robot or the script in this case is going to parse this Excel, find the combination of the row that has the given values, and then it's going to output the corresponding rows, columns C, D, and E. So this would be then the revised plan and class and the date of activation of this new plan for the customer then. So this is the use case. And in this case, also, we are not writing the text output parameters as just plain text, but we are writing it as JSON so that we can read then in a better way, in a structured way inside the robot. So maybe a little bit of explaining the robot before we do the demo. So again, these 3 are going to be the same steps as we saw before. The parameters, the first one is the name of the script, and then, of course, the base path, and then the actual parameters that we pass to the script. In this case, I want to pass to the script the class, the plan, which is the activity parameters, and also the path to the Excel, where it has to find this combination. And then here is, we are actually calling the AutoIT runtime, passing it the location of the script and the parameters that the script has to take. And finally, reading again from the text file. But before then I go further, I would like to describe the script. Let me open it. Yeah. Okay, so the structure is the same. It has a lot more includes because here we are directly accessing Excel libraries. So we need to include also Excel stuff. And we also need to include write JSON because I'm going to be outputting a JSON file instead of a plain text file. So, and then the second part is the same as before, which is reading all the input parameters that we are passing from the robot. And then we have here more output parameters in this case because it has to return 3 columns from the Excel. And also, if a combination is not found, then it has to also let the robot know that the robot has to send out a mail to the employee saying that the combination is not found for this particular case. And then we have the business logic. Again, I'm not going into the business logic, so it is going to open the Excel, read row by row, and then find the given combination. And if the given combination is not present, it is going to set a parameter called mail out to 1 or 0. This is a parameter that tells the robot whether to send the mail out or not. And finally, instead of the plain file write that we had in the previous example, we are now writing a JSON file, and also inside the base path. And to the JSON file, we are passing then all the output parameters that we just populated with the business logic. That's it. And going back to the bot, once this JSON file is created, we again read from the JSON file or .text file. And then instead of just giving it out as plain text, we can then use JSON path expressions because what is coming out from this file is a JSON object. So we can use JSON path expressions in order to read exactly the output parameter that we want. And you can see now that this is a bit more structured way of reading multiple parameters from a script instead of just writing it in a plain text format. So similarly, here we have a business logic in the bot, which is reading our mail out parameter from the script. And depending on that, it decides whether to send a mail if a combination is not found, or just display a message box with a found combination if a combination is found. That's it. So let me now run with the combination that is there available in the Excel. Yeah, I put this message box just to show the base path and how it looks like. So for me, the base path I have set for the bot is my temp folder. And inside the temp folder, while the bot is running, would be a folder that is created, which in this case is this one. And you can see over here the output file that we are generating from the script. So if I open this, there is already a JSON file that is generated with the combination that was found from the Excel. And the mail out is set to 0 because the combination is found. So let me just close this message box, and it displays the message box with the found combination. And if I go back to the same location, you can now see that the folder will be completely deleted and the folder is not at all present over here because the execution of the workflow is now finished, and hence the base path and in turn the text file that we created from the script is now deleted and cleaned up. That's it. And if I give now a combination that is not there, yeah, it's just going to send me a mail. Then just going to the message box. And I got a mail already that, I got a mail already that this particular combination is not found. Yeah. So any questions so far? Yes, there it is.
No questions so far?
Okay, in that case, then we can just go on to the final demo.
That demo case, the one that is a little bit of a gamble, right?
Yes.
Okay, in that case, our output will be a dialog box that could represent any kind of window created. In our case, it's a message box. And what we want to do here is, it's basically a random function that is flipping a coin.
Sorry, Julian, go on.
Yeah, maybe you can go to the workflow location and run the flip coin simulator for once.
Yep.
So you can see this time it's heads. I guess if we do it again, I don't know if it's really 50-50, but it really depends. And yeah, in our case, we are betting against the robot. So if it's heads, we're winning, and if it's not heads, we are losing. And if we go back to the studio,
Yes.
it's pretty simple. Yeah, we run our program with the normal run program, but we are using the wait on creation function. So we are waiting until a window pops up. And in this case, it's kind of easy because it's just one window. So the first that is created is the right one. So we haven't put any window title in that. But in that case, even if it takes longer, the robot will wait until the first window appears from that exe file. And yeah, okay, so we can assume that when we go to the next step, we use this app session read from app element. You can see we have marked the message box directly over the title bar, and we also could extend it with a regex that we are only looking for these two fill-ins like heads and tails. Okay. After that, we are actually not needing the message box anymore, so we identify the OK button and mark the robot down there with a mouse action. So we apply a left click on the OK window. So the next step with the variable is not really needed, but it's easier to work with that because we stored the variable we read out of the message box, and then we put in this check value to kind of gamble with our robot to have our yes or no game. Like if it is heads, get a message box that we win, and if it's not heads, or the default case, we lose. So if you play it, let's see if we win or lose for today. Hey, we got lucky. And that case is way easier, I guess, since the other ones. But the idea is here to, I don't know, deal with any kind of legacy system that fires out some text boxes. And of course, it does not have to be a message box. It could be any kind of box. Even a terminal window can be read. That really depends on your software that is available. Yeah. These were 3 use cases in how to integrate some script snippets into a MuleSoft robot.
Yep. So then, yeah, before we close, we would also like to focus on some of the points that we should be careful about before we go ahead and integrate external scripts into the RPA workflow, because the external scripts, like the name suggests, are completely outside the RPA environment. We cannot be sure of how long a script is going to run. It can depend on many external factors, like for example, in the demo we saw before, it might depend on the number of rows in the Excel. So we cannot depend on any specific or a fixed time inside our robot in order to really know that the script has finished executing. So we need to take proper measures. It could be anything, some sort of persisting data, which the robot can then check in order to know for sure that the script has finished executing before then carrying on the next steps in its workflow.
Yeah, this was actually also a question in the chat on how to kind of monitor if a script really is executed successfully. And of course, if you use some legacy software, you cannot somehow reprogram. This is very hard because you really need then to use a sleep or waiting time. But of course, if you're able to modify the source code, for example, of course, you can always create like an extra file that Excel processing is done or something like that. That really can help here.
Exactly. Then the second important point is, again, because this script stuff is completely outside the RPA workflow, we cannot also, or the RPA workflow cannot know if there was an error during the execution of the script. So because the script execution is completely independent from the workflow execution. So this should also be dealt with by the developer while building the bot. So we have to have very detailed and meticulous logging inside the script to know or to trace back then what happened if in case there was an issue during the script execution. And also sufficient steps to be taken inside the robot in case such an error occurs. And it would also be a best practice to make the script also write into the same log files as a robot so that it is easier then for maintenance, and we have to look at just one log file in the end to figure out then what happened.
Exactly. For example, there's one easy trick. If you create your own script and write a separate log file for something that goes wrong, you can also consume it easily and use the write log action step in the MuleSoft RPA and put in, for example, the warning, and it will be automatically added to the trace log. So you have all your log lines in one place that is somehow related to the robot. Can help. And it's it's a nice workaround for us in some cases.
Okay, with that, we come to the end of our session, and we would be happy now to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Good session. Really good session. I think I've learned a lot out of it since it was really going into some really cool parts. And I see we have already 2 feedbacks here that, some of the guys also liked your presentation and learned something out of it. And I've seen some questions during the session, which were all answered. So if you have any questions, and while the professionals are still here, just ask them. So I guess it's the best chance to actually get direct feedback on your questions and issues. Yeah. But I guess everything is clear. So beside questions, I have also something other to share before we can continue is just one more information from this meetup, and it's our next meetup schedule, which is on November 16. We'll have another meetup with a guest speaker from MuleSoft. It's Andreas Oberrauter, and he will show something about monitoring and analytics generally with MuleSoft. So if you're interested, mark this date on your calendar. The meetup will be posted soon. And with that, I would say if you want, you can do some networking. So it's always hard, I would say, in virtual meetups, as there's no direct way to actually interact, pretty much only the chat. But maybe you have some questions related to RPA in general, or MuleSoft integration, or you would just like to network, put your LinkedIn LinkedIn name if you want, and feel free to connect to us. Kiro, Julian, if you would like, I think you probably had a slide which we were not seeing where you presented yourself, right?
Yeah, just a slide for our company.
Yeah.
Maybe Julian, do you want to maybe just give a short overview? Let me share again. There.
Yeah, so
of course, if you're interested in other RPA sessions regarding deep dive technology reviews, we're always looking for fun topics, of course.
So yeah.
Yeah. So any topics with regards to process automation, MuleSoft RPA, MuleSoft Anypoint, and we also do for customers also a lot of solutions with Composer, and then integrating also all 3 components. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us and add us on LinkedIn.
So you guys getting very, very nice feedbacks here in the chat right now. So
That's great.
So people have really enjoyed your session. Yeah. So, but I don't think there are any more questions right now. And I would really like to thank you again for having the presentation prepared and everything, and joining the meetup here. And with that, as there is no more questions or informations in the chat, I would just say, yeah, thank you. And I hope to see you guys and everyone who's still here with us, maybe in the next meetup. And yeah, with that, I would just stop the recording, and I will drop out. If you want to stay, you can still stay. But that's it. I would say that was a good meetup. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kai.
Thanks a lot, Kai, also for your support. Thank you so much.